This is the media portrayal of ISIS. What is ISIS? How is ISIS different? Because, hell, a year ago we were all supposed to be afraid of Al-Qaeda. That's what we were told. The Taliban, Al-Qaeda. Now that ISIS has sprung up, what I've heard in the media is that ISIS is the creation as of us leaving Afghanistan in the first place. Or the fact Iraq, sorry.
Yes.
The fact that, same thing. When you're American, you're American, it's the same thing.
Actually, that has some truth to it. Is that when I landed here to America, I arrived last year in March, and I told the hotel guy that I'm from Iraq, and he said, "Is this the same as Afghanistan?" I'm like, I brought the geography and the map of the world, and I told him, "You know what? We are not the same fucking place."
PG. We're PG on the show.
Oh, yeah? Oh, yeah. I apologize.
That's all right. So I'm glad that you clarified that, though, as well as you did. But is ISIS really the creation of us leaving Iraq in the first place?
That's, yeah. I mean, it's a very complex situation. I mean, what happened is, there's a difference between Al-Qaeda and ISIS. I mean, ISIS is actually... I actually prefer the term ISIL if we're going to use acronym, because it stands...
ISIL? That's what President Obama says.
The Arabic word for it is الدولة العراقية الإسلامية للعراق وبلاد الشام, which means the Islamic State of Iraq and Levant. And the Levant means Syria, Lebanon, Israel, Palestine, the whole... It's called Bilad al-Sham. That is the Arabic word for it. So what happened is when... It started from internal dynamics of the region. I mean, you have the Syrian civil war, which started 3 years before they started advancing to Iraq. And what happened between Bashar al-Assad, the president of Syria, and the revolution that happened against him. The revolution started first by people that are generally moderate, and they wanted democracy and human rights and stuff. So you have these extremist elements that exist within this opposition. And these extremist elements have a lot of support within regional forces, and mainly Saudi Arabia and Qatar. So they got most of the support. And the good guys got killed by both Bashar al-Assad and the extremist factions of the Syrian opposition. So what is left is Al-Qaeda, which is Jabhat al-Nusra in Syria, and ISIS, which is the Islamic State. And that existed long before. They also had their own missions, and there are actually videos of the Islamic State blowing up U.S. military and stuff long before, 2007, 2008. So the difference between Al-Qaeda and ISIS is that Al-Qaeda is trying to establish an Islamic caliphate in the future, while the Islamic State of Iraq and Syria is trying to establish an Islamic State at the moment, while the conditions are there, which are the civil war in Syria, and there was already elements of civil war in Iraq.
So ISIS is fairly new. They just created.
Not really. No, they are new in terms of them conquering lands, but as a group, they have existed at the same time Al-Qaeda existed in terms of the Iraqi conflict.
So are they an ally of Al-Qaeda, or are they enemies?
They used to be allies because they. But now, when these conditions that I mentioned were created, they differentiated themselves by saying, no, we're trying to establish an Islamic caliphate at the moment. And this is the right conditions to do it. And so Ayman al-Zawahiri, who's the leader of Al-Qaeda after Osama bin Laden was killed, actually differed with them and said, no, this is not the right time. And then ISIS told them, go to hell. We're going to establish an Islamic caliphate at the moment. So that's
actually... they're not... I mean, even though they're not allies, are they enemies? Would they fight against one another?
Sometimes they do, but on the... I mean, some of the...
Because we should totally go over to Al-Qaeda and be like, ISIS is talking crap about your mom.
Actually, is that ISIS...
That would be great.
Would work, definitely.
Is that ISIS is considered extreme by Al-Qaeda. So imagine how terrible ISIS is.
Say that again.
Say that again?
Is that ISIS is considered extreme by Al-Qaeda.
So Al-Qaeda looks at ISIS and goes, those dudes are crazy.
Yes.
Hey, man.
So imagine, yeah.
At least we're not Mormons.
So Al-Qaeda is actually, I mean, I've written an article they're going to publish for the free inquiry.
Oh yeah, I didn't do your intro.
You don't. I'm
I
well,
suck. We had it all planned. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm well known to speak for myself. So,
but I wanted to say it. Can I say it now?
Go ahead.
Let's do it for the next segment.
Let's pretend like we're there's no break. Let's pretend like we're professional. You ready? I want to read my notes here. And I didn't realize all of these things about him. He's the guy that I run by and punch in the arm at conferences, and we laugh and make faces at each other across the crowd.
Yeah.
He's a friend, but he's actually the founder of Global Secular Humanist Movement and a blogger for Huffington Post. Congratulations on that, by the way. He's a columnist for Free Inquiry magazine, and he just came back from his speech at Harvard University. Joining us all the way from D.C., ladies and gentlemen, Faisal Saeed Al Mutar. I said it right again.
He's legit. He's a legit guy.
He is legit.
I see at convention. I'm like, hey, I know that guy. I'm like, hey, how are you doing? And then, wait, oh wow, he's legit.
He's the real deal.
He is real.
Don't let his crazy
Did you say he's
unprofessionalism.
He is Israel. That's exactly what will come out of my mouth.
Bring the conspiracy theories on. So,
Can you explain what a caliphate is? For a lot of people don't.
Oh, he wants to explain the caliphate. Yeah.
well, the caliphate is it's a concept that existed within Islamic history. That is a leader comes from the. It's really like I. That's a difficult question because there is a lot of schools that explains what the caliphate is. But let me tell you what the ISIS definition of a caliphate, which is that they want to reestablish an Islamic empire, and the leader of it is a caliphate. So it comes from the word khalifa, and the first four. So when after Prophet Muhammad died, if you want to call him a prophet or not, that's up to you. There were people who come Khalifa Abu Bakr, and then Khalifa Umar, and then Khalifa Uthman, and then Khalifa Ali, and they were the leaders of the Islamic Empire after the death of the Prophet. And then afterwards there is the Umayyad, who also part of the Islamic Empire, and then there was the Abbasid, who were also expanded the Islamic Empire. So it's the leader of the Islamic Empire. If there is a literal definition of the caliphate, it should be this. But it's a very controversial debate within Islamic jurisprudence, and that's where the difference between Al Qaeda and ISIS, because
So Al Qaeda's being more. It sounds like Al Qaeda's being more conservative.
Al Qaeda is the liberal people.
Right. Well, what
Al
I'm
Qaeda
saying
is the liberal, and
what I'm
ISIS
saying-
are the conservative.
What I'm saying is they're being more conservative in their takeover. They're saying we're not necessarily going to do it all by force right now. We just want to set the stage for it to happen.
Is it like
In time.
Presbyterian versus Westboro on a violent scale?
Maybe. I mean, I'm not very much familiar with internal domestic politics.
Enjoy
but
your
I'm just
lawsuit.
trying to translate it to me, like having something.
That is Rachel at dogmadebate.com.
A lot of Christians say Westboro, those are the extremists. They're being ridiculous. They're being crazy. You know, they shouldn't be picketing funerals, but we're the real Christians.
Yeah, I do kind of have a different definition of like radical and moderate Muslim, and is that the radical Muslims, in my opinion, are those who support liberal democracy and human rights. So, I mean, I gave it an Apostica, and I was giving this speech, and I also gave it in many different forums. I said that the United States foreign policy should be supporting the radical Muslims against the rest, because the definition of the radical is a person who accepts beliefs that are different than the norm. And the people like
I see what you did there.
people like Majid Nawaz or Irshad Manji are the radical Muslims, while the people who hold beliefs, I mean, that's where the discussion about Islam comes into extreme crazy, is that what you have is the far right in America are fighting radical Islam for the wrong reasons. And they think that there is a conflict between Christianity and Islam, and there is a global war. And you have the far left on the other side defending Islam from criticism. And what happens is that when people like Sam Harris or people like me or other talk about Islam in a reasonable way, they eventually be put in a school that you're either with this people or you're with this people.
Well, it becomes, what I've heard, is racist.
Yes.
Because just like if you say anything against Jewish people or Jewish doctrine, it's, anti-Semitism, and it's this whole, you hate the people instead of challenging the bad idea.
Yeah, I mean, bigotry is hatred against people, not ideas. So I want to make this clear, is that you can actually, I mean, just like within some Christian churches, they say hate the sin, not the sinner.
Right.
So you can. The thing is that we cannot hold a discussion about the doctrine of Islam and its consequences without being called racist. And the term racist is being used pretty much to shut down the discussion. I mean, it's a very common thing in America that if you call somebody racist, homophobic, or anti-woman, it's generally shut down the discussion immediately.
Yeah.
So it's a very good tool to silence any discussion about Islam.
Especially people that are afraid to be categorized like that, such as the liberal population. They don't want to be called
bigots.
Homophobic or bigots or racist.
Exactly. And there's an article my friend wrote at the Huffington Post, Al-Rizvi, called a fear of being called Islamophobic. Is that many people on the left and the liberal side, that they acknowledge that things are much worse in Islam than in Christianity, but they cannot say it because they don't want to look that they are in any way racist.
That's Islamophobiaphobia.
Islamophobiaphobia, exactly.
Yeah.
And actually, that is the title of his article, is that the Islamophobiaphobia.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
You could be
Is
writing
that-
for the Post.
I should totally be writing for the Post.
Is that what we have is that, and the thing is, like, many people look at it from the American domestic view, is that, especially if the person who's saying this is a white guy, and they're going to say, oh, well, you come from a white background and you're white privileged and your ancestors probably hold the slaves. You have no right whatsoever to talk about other cultures from different regions, and therefore you are racist.
Yeah.
So and that's a very good way to silence people like Sam Harris, who is white. It doesn't work with me, obviously.
You're actually from Iraq, right?
I am from Iraq, and the thing is, like, they can also use arguments that I'm, for example, Uncle Tom, that somebody who sold his own culture and tried to be associated with white people and things like that, but it doesn't really win as much as when a white person criticizing Islam and directly be called racist, and it just suddenly shut down the discussion. And so we are not really able to have a discussion about doctrines without being told that we are generalizing on the whole people.
It just clouds the whole issue, and the important stuff kind of goes away.
Yes, the important stuff. I mean, the statistics, and I did not bring the statistics here with me, but the overwhelming.
That's okay. We're not big on facts. We just make it up as we go anyway.
I mean,
throw out an 87%. Go.
Actually, just to bring you, and I actually do remember a number, which is 65%
I thought it was
of the Egyptian people believe that those who leave Islam should be killed.
Wow.
And we're
of Egyptians.
And that is the
governed by
third
the Muslim Brotherhood, right?
Yes, that is the third largest Muslim country. So you have Indonesia is the largest Muslim country, and then you have Pakistan, and then you have Egypt. This is the top three. When we are talking about 65%, let's give it a plus minus error. Let's say that 60% of it. I'm going to be conservative over here. Let's say 60%. Let's say 50%. Yeah. When we're talking about 50% of Egyptian population, we're talking about the population of Brazil. Okay, that's the half population of the United States. And we're talking about 75 million people believing that anybody who leaves Islam should be put to death. Does all of them actually do the killing? No. Probably some small segment of them do. But imagine if you are an atheist or a freethinker or a skeptic or a religious minority living within a population that half the population, and more than half, that's 65%, believes that you should be killed. Imagine the state of fear like people like me who grew up in the Middle East live in. Do all of my neighbors want to kill me? I don't know. But there is a percentage that actually do believe that. And you live in constant state of fear. If you are a freethinker, if you're a skeptic, if you're a religious minority, and I always advocate for religious minorities because it's not only the atheists that are being prosecuted in Muslim countries. Look at Yazidis when it comes to ISIS. Yazidis, most of them either killed. The Iraqi Christian population, moved from 5% to 0.1%. Most of the Iraqi Christians are either killed or immigrated. Look at the religious minorities across the board within Muslim countries, except some Muslim countries that came as a result of the fall of the Ottoman Empire. Ataturk came and established a secular nation, and he himself was an atheist or a deist. That means he was not a Muslim. So you have all these dynamics, and we have to be honest in talking about these topics. And we're talking about these topics. We're not talking about, because here's where comes in the argument when we're talking to Americans. Well, I have this Muslim friend, and he's cool, and he's awesome. Therefore, like anything that you talk about Islam within, because Americans think that America is like the only country in the world. That is not the case. There is something called the rest of the world. And that needs to be talked about.
We have I know at least one Canadian listener, and she mentioned she was talking to me one time on Twitter, and I said, "So what do you think about the United States? Do you hate us? Like, what is your view?" And she's like, "We don't hate you. We just kind of look at you and want to pat you on the head." And I was like, "Why?" And she said, "Well, you're just kind of the big guy that stares at his own belly button. Like you're just kind of there, and you think you're all that exists. You know, you'd grab any kid out of any class, any adult out of any job, and say, who is in charge of Syria right now? They have no clue. You ask them who the president or the prime minister, they never know. None of us know. But all of these people know us. They know who Barack Obama is. You know, so we kind of feel like we're the only ones, so we stare at our own belly button. So I definitely understand what you're saying.
Yeah, so there's this...
Put your shirt back on, David.
Okay, sorry about that.
So when somebody have any discussion about Islam, and you're talking about an American people, they will always relate to things that they feel at home. And they're like, I have this Muslim neighbor, and I have this Muslim neighbor, and he's not a terrorist, and my dentist is not a terrorist, and my dentist thinks that people... And there's a huge difference between Muslims and beliefs if they are a majority and they are a minority. And that can be explained very much within behavioral economics, is that when you're a minority, you behave much more differently than you are a majority. So Muslims in America, just like anyone else, as a minority, they try to accommodate the belief of the larger population. And that includes the U.S. Constitution and the freedom of religion. But if you go to Pakistan, it's something else. So just because we have this word Muslims, and it's really not really descriptive of the region that these Muslims belong to, and we have to really teach geography, in my opinion. We really have to look at region per region. And the thing is that most Muslims are located in Muslim-dominated countries, and some of these Muslim-dominated countries hold large population, which is not a minority, hold beliefs. Because we all stuck with the extremes like ISIS, and do all Muslims are ISIS and not. But let's look at the average beliefs and beliefs that we talk about, like women rights, gay rights, and things. The Muslim-dominated countries are so far behind when it comes to this basic human rights. Let's not talk about ISIS. Let's just talk about...
I know, when I was editor of Secular World magazine, we did these little news bits all throughout the magazine. And one of the ones that just stuck with me so much, and I guess I do know why, but one of the little news updates we gave that shocked me. It wasn't from anything like ISIS. It was nothing from anything that was extreme. It's that women are allowed to be judges in Iran, but female judges in Iran cannot sign their own orders. They can make a ruling and they give the order, but then they have to have a male judge sign the order before it's validated.
Yeah.
That is mind-boggling.
I mean, we get always stuck because it always shows up in the media when there is like an American person was killed, and who was the terrorist group that killed him is ISIS. And that's only the thing that we focus on, which is like the top of the bubble. But we really don't really focus on the things that are basic. That basic human rights, like women are human beings, and they deserve.
We react to these terrible things, and then we care, and then we don't pay any attention to what's actually happening to the people in the area.
And the thing is, like so the discussion always goes to: are the Muslims are like ISIS, or are the Muslims are not like ISIS? Because that's not actually, I think that's not the thing that we should mainly focus on. Is that we should really focus on basic human rights and see. The worst countries when it comes to women's rights, the top 10 are Muslim. There are 13 countries that execute people for being atheists and free thinkers. all of them are Muslim-dominated countries. We should actually put more focus talking about that, because this is the really because what happens is that extremism like ISIS and Al Qaeda and all of this stuff come from a culture that looks at Islam and looks at the doctrine of Islam as something that needs to be protected,
as a religion or as a race of people.
It's a culture.
It sort of starts to blur the line. And
yes,
it gets protection as though it's a religion or that it's a race.
Or it's a matter of identity. I mean, for example, like I was raised in a secular liberal family. I mean, I've never been a Muslim, so I'm not a formal Muslim in any sort of form. But the moment that I declared that myself as an atheist, it became that I kind of deviated from my Iraqi nationality. That many people start calling me that I'm betraying Iraq for being an atheist, because they think that being Iraqi is to believe in something, and that's either Christianity or Islam.
Yeah.
So there is a mix between culture and religion, culture and nationality. Some race thing is very terrible because Islam belongs to so many different races, and it's just like any other ideology, just like calling communism a race.
Right?
Yeah,
Is communism a race?
It's
just saying that if you're going to criticize communism and somebody calls you a racist, that's ridiculous.
Well, I want to get into that whenever we play this clip, and I'm going to do that in just a few seconds here.
Go ahead.
But I want to ask you a question. Back on ISIS and back on Taliban, Al Qaeda. If we were to set them down, take them to Aposticon, take them to the American Atheist Convention, convince them all that what they are fighting for is ridiculous, is absurd, and actually convince them that secularity is a peaceful way to move forward, and that they actually became atheists. All of the Taliban, all of ISIS, all of Al Qaeda, they became atheists. Do you think they would continue what they're doing for money and power and control, or is it really driven by religion?
That is probably the best question I've ever heard.
Thank you.
I think that's really good.
Good. I mean, leave aside all the Aposticon and everything. I mean, if you like what you're saying is that if these people start stopping believing in what they're believing, would peace exist in the Middle East? I think that probably may be a better way to...
Don't reword my best question ever.
I know. Now I'm confused.
My point is, if they stopped believing...
I'm going to make my own question and answer it. So that's
you didn't introduce him, so he can do what he wants.
That's right. Take it over the show.
It's much more complicated than that. But it can definitely reduce. Because the thing is, Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, who is the leader of ISIS, would not be able to get as much popular support as he's getting if he's saying that I'm fighting for secularism or liberal values.
So even if he became an atheist, he would continue to pretend
that
for the power.
Yes, but no, it's not about power. It's that the culture believes that this is the most perfect world. Even the majority of people don't believe ISIS or don't believe in the values of ISIS, but it's just that the value that he's an Islamic state, therefore he can bring more people to the board. So, yes, there are some elements of power and there are some elements of political and economics. It's not that it's only about religion, but religion plays a very major role in recruiting, in their support. So without religion, many of that would be...
So it's not that we need to convince ISIS or the Taliban, it's that we need to convince the populace. Just like what Dr. Tyson was saying. I'm sorry, my friend Neil. kind of what my buddy Neil was saying, that if you don't like what Congress is doing, you have the power to change it. It's the population that needs to be educated and that can bring their own country out of it, instead of going after the ones that are doing it, like going after Congress, calling them names, going after the president. Everyone's got this misconception that if we just get the right guy in office, everything can be solved, and that's not the case. So maybe it's that we need to convince the population of Iraq and Iran.
To that, we were discussing this with Daryl Ray. And even if you remove these beliefs from these people magically, and they all disappear, and they have no strong influence to be doing very specific things, are they going to stop acting out? Are they gonna these violent behaviors or things that they think are culturally normal, to stone or to rape or to do any of these at least behaviors that we recognize as bad? If you remove the religion, I think, like you were saying, the face that you made was kind of how I felt. That the answer is kind of, I feel like it might be both, because even in America, where you don't have highly religious people or even atheists, religion is saturated in the words and the way that we view each other. So you have, slut shaming, and then Daryl Ray's like, where did that come from? It has a religious basis. Even if you have atheists that have no, I didn't have a religion practically when I was raised, but I have religion that still influences the way that I act and treat people.
You have cultural biases that came from that religion,
right,
even though you didn't have the religion.
So if you remove this religion, these people are still going to have these feelings and ways that they probably are more comfortable acting. Maybe.
Yes, but it's going to be, the defense for these acts is going to be much more different, and it's going to be easily can be destroyed. Is that when somebody makes the argument and say, this is my faith, is much more stronger than saying it's my tradition, is much more stronger than saying it's my culture.
Yeah.
So if you're going to destroy the first element that says, oh, that's what my religion has been telling me for 1,400 years, and you're going to destroy the culture behind it, and then it's going to be only tradition, and then they're going to have much less recruits in the 21st century.
They just have subconscious at that point.
No heaven, no bombs.
So because the moment, and these were terms like racist and stuff, is that the moment that you ruin this whole concept that Islam is not a race, and when somebody going to call you a racist, it's going to be a complete joke, and you look like a moron.
Now, what Jerry just said was no heaven, no bombs. If they didn't think they were actually going to go to heaven and have these virgins and have this promise, if they didn't really believe that, they wouldn't be able to recruit these suicide bombers.
Exactly. I mean that's if you and part of my job is to look at analyze many of my previous job, not mine now, but to analyze the magazines that people published, and they have a magazine called Inspire that tells you how many virgins and what the virgins look like when you blow yourself up.
Did you bring any of those magazines?
To women, can women be martyrs? Can women blow themselves
How many
up?
men do they get?
No, man. Actually, there's this joke. It says that I met 72 virgins at the Star Trek convention. So,
what happens to the women? As the one woman in the room, could I be a martyr? Could I have this status? Could
what
I
would
kill
she
myself
get?
for Islam?
not really.
Or do I become one of the virgins? Because that's kind of a lame deal.
Yeah,
Jason, get that.
it's not really a good deal for you. I'm sorry.
Well, what
What
happens
does she
to
get?
women?
What's behind door number 3?
Well, I would say I think you being an Islamic extremist is more believable than you being a virgin.
Whoa!
Wow.
David.
Jason, make sure you get the martyr thing from her and that one from David.
Yeah, but
Kari's gonna have
but
a ball.
it's actually, I mean, within if that thing exists, which is called feminist Islam, is that they actually do ask this question: is that what actually women get in heaven? Is that it's not all, leave aside the martyrdom and the blowing yourself up. Is that what actually women? Because even if you don't blow yourself up, you're still gonna get some virgins.
Yeah, what if you're a perfect religious person and then you were about to die? What does that person think?
What does the woman get, though? Does she get to go be someone's wife, someone's woman?
Do I get an afterlife?
It is still something debatable within the Islamic jurisprudence. So there is no. I mean, I cannot give you.
Do you have an afterlife? Do you
Yes,
you get to
yes,
one
you
of the
get an
virgins.
afterlife, but
Just don't know what
whether you're gonna get virgins or not, I'm not the one to decide.
You're probably-
Would you really want a guy virgin?
I don't want
Ew.
some
You get
guy
to be the
virgins. That's a lame deal.
So wait, so you can get virgins even if you don't blow yourself up? Is that what
Yeah. I mean, Hur al-Ain is something that
So the
exists.
sales pitch is in the amount of virgins?
Yes, the bombing increases the amount of virgins.
Is that
it
seriously?
really?
Is
Yeah.
it
Do you get
incremental?
more virgins if
Because
it's a bigger bomb?
dying as a martyrdom, which is shaheed is the word for
Right.
it, is you're gonna get more benefits. So you're gonna get food stamps and you're gonna get some social security.
You're going to run out of virgins eventually because they're going to stop being virgins. So that isn't going to last.
What do
a
you not
month and a
understand
half?
about God?
Oh, he's
How are
going to
you
keep
missing
redoing
this?
their virginity. Wow, I get it.
Yeah,
Virgins
you
with
can
benefits.
just like format and install a new Windows.
Reboot your booty.
It makes sense. benefits. This is not offensive whatsoever.
How do you get virgins with benefits? I'm not sure I get that one.
Actually, I mean, just to make things more crazy.
No. More crazy?
Is that within
Reboot the booty, and as you were saying, format, reinstall new vagina. He's saying reboot the booty. This is the greatest show ever.
But actually, I mean, one of the most common plastic surgeries within some of the Muslim countries, including the Middle East, is to restore virginity.
Oh my God.
Because those who don't, when they get married and they're not virgins, they may actually get killed. So just to bring the sadness back.
Wow.
They reconstruct it.
Well, now here's the thing, though. I saw a news story not too long ago about a Muslim man, who I believe he sued his wife because she had plastic surgery before they met, and he married her, and then he said it was her fault that they had an ugly baby, and he didn't know that that's how she looked before the surgeon, quote unquote, fixed her face. And so he sued her, and I believe there was some court that ruled in his favor that allowed him to divorce her and sued her for something.
False advertisement.
Right. That's literally what they were calling, because she became, quote unquote, more attractive from having plastic surgery. This is what you're talking about, is that this mindset, even without the hardcore fundamentalist beliefs, this is why it's still poisonous. This is why these are still bad ideas. And I want to play now the conversation that Bill Maher, Sam Harris, and Ben Affleck had on Bill Maher's show. Now, there are times where they talk over each other quite a bit, kind of like Dogma Debate.
What are you talking about?
We have, like, what?
Just fight through it.
Freaking 6 people in the room?
Is this
Yeah, I
going
know.
to screw up the Batman movie for me?
Probably.
Dang it.
It might. Now, I've seen a few videos of people who agree with Ben Affleck. They are going off agreeing with Ben Affleck. So I'm not sure exactly where the majority of the atheist community stands on it, or the secular community. But
I know where I stand.
Yeah, I know where I stand,
My
too.
Facebook
Well-
knows where it stands.
I stand for Batman.
all right, here we go.
Stop it.
The thing we want to talk about, of course, is that you and I have been trying to make the case, I think,
Now, he's talking to Sam Harris.
I have anyway, that liberals need to stand up for liberal principles. This is what I said on last week's show. Obviously, I got a lot of hate for it. But all I'm saying is that liberal principles like freedom of speech, freedom to practice any religion you want without fear of violence, freedom to leave a religion, equality for women, equality for minorities, including homosexuals. These are liberal principles that liberals applaud for. But then when you say, in the Muslim world, this is what's lacking, then they get upset.
Yeah. Well, liberals have really failed on the topic of theocracy. They'll criticize white theocracy. They'll criticize Christians. They'll still get agitated over the abortion clinic bombing that happened in 1984. But when you want to talk about the treatment of women and homosexuals and free thinkers and public intellectuals in the Muslim world, I would argue that liberals have failed us. And the crucial point of confusion, thank you.
Thank God you're here.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the crucial point of confusion is that we.
I'm not going to stop it anymore. I wanted to point out that was Ben Affleck that said, "Thank God you're here," as though he's being very sarcastic to Sam Harris throughout this, but he was thanking him for being here, for pointing that out.
We have been sold this meme of Islamophobia, where every criticism of the doctrine of Islam gets conflated with bigotry toward Muslims as people.
Right.
And that is it's intellectually ridiculous. It gets
So hold on, are you the person who understands the officially codified doctrine of Islam? You're the interpreter of that, so you can say, well, this is...
I'm actually well educated on this topic.
I'm asking you. So you're saying, if I criticize you're saying that Islamophobia is not a real thing. That if you're critical of something...
Well, it's not a real thing when we do it.
Right.
Well, no,
it really isn't.
I'm not denying that certain people are bigoted against Muslims as people. And that's a problem.
Big of you.
But
why are you so hostile about this?
It's gross. It's racist.
It's not. But it's so not.
It's like saying those you're a shifty Jew.
You're not listening
Absolutely
to
not.
what we are saying.
You guys are saying if you want to be liberals, believe in liberal principles like freedom of speech, like
Right.
We are endowed by our forefathers with inalienable rights, like all men are created equal.
Ben, we have to be able to criticize bad ideas. And
Of course we do. No liberal doesn't want to
okay.
criticize bad
But
ideas.
Islam
But
at
why
this moment
would-
is the mother lode of bad ideas.
Jesus.
So we have
That's just a
ideas
fact.
like blasphemy.
It is
It's an ugly thing to say.
apostasy.
It is,
One basic liberal
Well, let me
principle
unpack
of
it.
tolerance.
Let me unpack
but
it.
not for intolerance.
No, of course not. But the picture you're painting is, to some extent, true, but is hugely incomplete. It is certainly true that plenty of fanatics and jihadis are Muslim, but the people who are standing up to them, Malala, incredible Muhammad Ali Dadak in Iran, in prison for 9 years for speaking up for Christians. A friend that I had in Pakistan who was shot this year, Rashid Rahman, for defending people accused of apostasy.
Or how about the more than 1 billion people who
those are
aren't
Muslims
fanatical, who don't punish women, who just want to go to the store,
Wait a second.
sandwiches,
Wait a
pray
second.
5 times a day, and don't do any of the things that you're saying all Muslims
Wait a second.
stereotyping.
Wait a
You bad
second.
things, and you painting the whole group religion with that.
No,
same brush.
let's get
The jihadist,
one reason they
yeah.
don't get exposed is because they're afraid to speak out because
And
it's the only
that's-
because it's the
That's
only
it.
religion that acts like the mafia that will kill you if you say the
that's
wrong
true.
thing,
I mean, that's-
draw the wrong picture, or write the wrong book.
So
It's a gross and racist.
I mean, it's obvious they didn't let Sam Harris speak, and he's like, "Let me unpack it. Let me unpack it." And Ben, he comes from a right place. He comes from wanting people to be equal and be treated nicely, and he's reacting off a couple words, and he doesn't like it, and so he has a good heart, but he doesn't let Sam Harris speak. And
When Sam Harris said, "But we should be allowed to criticize bad ideas," Ben said, "Of course we should," and then as Sam said, "But Islam is the motherlode of bad ideas," Ben went, "Jesus Christ!"
He got into a lot
Like
of
he was
trouble.
so shocked that he would say that. What is so wrong with that statement?
MSNBC destroyed Sam just for that statement.
I mean,
All day.
Really?
Yeah.
MSNBC did?
MSNBC on Chris
Yeah.
Matthews.
Lawrence O'Donnell.
And Lawrence as well. Yeah,
Yeah.
they had guests that were just like, Sam can't say this. He said it was the motherlode of you can't isolate a billion people. I'm sitting there, I just turned
It's
it off.
not the people. He said ideas. And he said it multiple times. Hold on. Is there anyone in this room, and I'm not going to throw you out. I want you to talk more. Is there anyone in this room that agrees with Ben Affleck? Is there anyone that thinks that he was right and that Sam is being racist
He
at
had a
all?
good heart.
Nobody?
I don't agree.
Me. I'm just kidding.
Liar.
You
was
ruined
really-
Batman for me.
I mean, I do think that he has good intentions. That's generally the case for liberals, is that they come good intention, but good. It's generally like bad things happen as a result of good intentions. So we should not really care about intentions here as much as being pragmatic.
Right.
The thing is, it's actually, if we're gonna talk about racist and I'm gonna talk about race, is that when we're gonna expect Christian Republican, social conservatives, the same way we're gonna expect Muslims, that is not racist. But if we're gonna apply double standards, that is that's actually the racist thing to do, because as I said, if a social conservative comes in from Texas, from other states, and says he's against gay marriage, or he's against pro-choice, liberals gonna be so angry. Look at this bigot. Look at what he's talking about. He's anti-women, the war on women, and things like that. Well, let's look at the Muslim world and see what the majority of the people and what the politicians talk about things like gay marriage. And if you're gonna call the Republican who is against gay marriage a bigot, then you probably need to call 90% of the Muslim world bigots.
Yeah.
Then if we're gonna be equal, and if liberals love this world equality, then we have to apply the same standard as we apply to white Christian Republicans, as we apply to Muslims all over the world.
And this is what you were talking about. If a white person does it, if a white Republican person does it, we call them a bigot, and nobody cares about it. They'll do it on public television. They'll do it everywhere. They don't care.
But nobody
if
can
someone
tell
that's-
you.
If someone that's brown does it, we go, "Oh, I don't want to be racist. I'm not going to be a part of the group." You know.
And we get it when somebody says that. When somebody says, Christian Republicans or social conservatives are bigots, nobody gonna tell you, look, not all white Christian Republicans are bigots, but there is a small there's also a group of people, just like what Ben Affleck says, well, there's 1 billion people who don't really support ISIS or whatever, but we're gonna say the same about Republicans. They're not gonna say, well, there's like 60% of US population who vote Republican but don't really vote. So there is a very huge double standard within the liberal voice.
And here's
and that is actually, in my opinion, is the racist thing to do. Is that because you're applying double standard to those who are non-Christian whites, and to say and to believe whatever they want, and that is actually the racist. It's not the racist thing to say that ideas have consequences, and the idea that apostates should be put to death is a bad idea. Mm-hmm. It's nothing to do with race.
Even if there are a billion people that just want to pray 5 times a day, go to school, have their dinner, avoid certain foods, whatever, they still hold on to very bad ideas that still publicly support the horrific things that the extremists are doing.
To some extent,
yes. These people who are just wanting to pray 5 times a day, they still have bad ideas, and it's okay to say that their ideas are bad for that society.
Yes, is that, as I said, is that we always tend to focus on things like ISIS, Al-Qaeda, and all Muslims Al-Qaeda, and all Muslims ISIS. But there is something much bigger that needs to be discussed. Women rights, human rights generally, LGBT rights. These are the things that are the worst in Muslim-dominated countries, and we need to talk about them.
Yeah, criticizing an idea
and criticizing the bad ideas against these basic human rights is not racist, but actually make you a true liberal.
Yeah, discussing calling
that.
someone a bigot is a criticism of an idea. It's not, you don't call a white person a racist whenever they are a bigot, but you turn towards a different religion, you don't call them a bigot. You just say it's racist to even talk about it. No, you can still criticize the same ideas.
That's racism of lower expectations, and those who support it should be ashamed of themselves.
I've come close to that talking about Judaism. When I talk about the Old Testament, I talk about the Torah, I'm talking about stoning people to death. I'm like, these are horrible ideas. I've had atheists go, whoa. Be careful. Don't be anti-Semitic. Now,
yeah, but you don't see the majority of Jews stoning their daughter to death for not being a virgin.
Yeah.
I mean, not all religions are equal in the 21st century.
Is the majority of Muslims doing it, though? I think the answer is no. It's not the majority of the Muslims that do it. Just like the majority of Christians here.
No.
Hold on. Just like the majority of Christians here don't actually kill homosexuals, but they will say God said it's an abomination punishable by death. I'm not here to do it, but yes, if God wants them dead, they should be dead. But they're not going to go out and do the killing.
It's completely different. Is that we always have to be stuck within this minority versus majority. I mean, when you have a 40% or 50-60% of the Egyptians supporting killing for apostasy, you can call this a majority and you could not call this a majority.
Yep.
So it's not all, but there is a percent, just like ISIS. Yes, not all Muslims are ISIS, and I have to make this clear. Not all Muslims support ISIS, but there is a percentage that is not a small minority that create a small screen for ISIS to continue their extremism.
Yep.
No.
This is not racist, and I'm brown. Maybe you cannot see it on the radio, but
to attack being a Muslim is to attack a huge group of ideas. It's useless to say, "Oh, well, we need to bomb all the Muslims." No, we need to find out the ideas that build a Muslim and talk about specific ideas. We don't say just racism and Muslim. You need to talk about the ideas.
Yeah, which region of the world that follows these ideas, we are only attacking these ideas, and has nothing to do with race, and considering the fact that Islam is an ideology, is like any other ideology that is believed from people all over the world, and the largest Muslim country is Indonesia. That means they are not Arabs. So attacking Islam has nothing to do with hatred against Middle Easterns or Arabs.
Yeah. And race isn't real, everyone, just letting you know. Scientifically, race does not exist. It's something we made up. Sorry.
Well, throw that in when we have 8 seconds left in this segment. You can find him at the Huffington Post. He's the founder of Global Secular Humanist Movement. Where can they find you? To give them a website, Twitter, something that they can spell.
Yes, Twitter.
Yes. My website has everything, which has www.faisalmutar.com.
I'm glad you did that, because nobody would have understood it if you'd have just said it.
It's not facial.com.
Not facial.com.
Wait, what is it not?
Not facial.com.
There you go.
Thank you so much for being here today.
Sure.
We do appreciate it. Coming up next, the crazy song of the week with Jerry DeWitt.
Help me, Jesus.
You have some answering to do for this one, buddy.
Oh, great.
You have some answering to do. More
Great.
Dogma Debate coming up.